Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise, and we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer and listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Let me welcome you to yet another invigorating and exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. Always a privilege and an honor that you can take your time out of your very busy schedules to spend some time with us. And may I ask you please, respectfully, to please just strike that button, that subscribe button. We need your support, guys. And my guest, I've got a very exciting guest. You can see me, guys. I'm excited. My guest is Ngwanuuza.
Yes.
And just from that name, I want to leave it to her to introduce herself. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Mr. Mogobe. I would rather prefer to call you Mr. M because
Yes.
I think
I love
you're
that.
doing something that is different, on point and on trend.
Yes.
Mr. Mogobe, I'm Ngwanuuza. Well, Kgomotso, nationally, Kgomotso Garebakwena is my national identity. But I personally, as my personal brand, I go by Ngwanuuza. Ngwanuuza, which is essentially a brand I created in 2019 as an affirmation to myself. You know, it was pronouncing who I am and what I would love to do and about life and my outlook in life.
Just for those who don't know, Ngwanuuza commonly means what? And in your case, it means what?
Aha,
Yeah.
That's absolutely awesome. So Ngwanuuza commonly means Ngwanuuza. It's
A babe.
It's a babe, an entire babe.
Yeah.
On Wednesday, we would call her a woman crush.
Yeah.
Yes, but
Yeah.
in my context, Ngwanuuza, as I shared, was an affirmation for me. So Ngwanuuza was that girl that respectfully speaks her mind, you know, respectfully secures the bag, loves to have conversations, is really about being larger than life, and most importantly, securing the bag.
Okay.
So it was a personal brand that wasn't just meant to be something that was meant to sit on the back end as something that I'm putting off as a brand. It was something it's a bigger, it's a movement. It's about women coming together and being able to be themselves.
Wow, this sounds very, very exciting. But just share a little bit about your background, educationally, vocationally, so that we know a little bit more about you.
Oh, thank you. So essentially, Kgomotso Garebakwena, born and bred in Botswana, ko Ramotso hela hala mme ke ngwanyana mo kwena ko mo Lepolole. Yes, I am. Ke le ngwanyana mo kwena ke gola. And vocationally, so we'll start in varsity. My first major was actually finance, so finance and accounting, which I studied at the University of Botswana for about 2 years. But within those 2 years, I realized that this is not my calling, so I then changed majors into marketing, and I graduated as a marketing graduate from the University of Botswana. And since then, it has been like the most amazing path for me because essentially I was able to plug myself and live purposefully with the things that I love to do, because marketing allows you to be artistic, to engage and to speak to people and, you know, clearly, creatively bring things to life.
So before you started on your own, did you work anywhere?
Yes, I did.
Tell us about that.
So my professional journey started at Dialogue Sachi and Sachi, which is an advertising agency run.
A big one internationally.
Yes,
What is their catchphrase? I'm trying to remember what they.
My God, that was like 10 years ago, and I should not forget because Tondarai will kill me.
Yeah, okay.
But honestly, my professional life started off at Dialogue Sachi and Sachi, and quickly after that, I became the first brand manager in the country for KFC Botswana. And just as I was thinking, okay, I'm flourishing and my wings are big and I'm becoming a big girl, I was headhunted into KBL, Kalahari Breweries. So when I was at Kalahari Breweries Limited, now AB InBev, I worked on brands such as St. Louis Lager. Actually, that was conceptualized from then. And quickly from there, And I still hold this position as marketing manager for Debonair's Pizza Botswana.
As we speak?
As we speak.
Okay.
Currently, at present.
Wow.
As well as I run the Ngwanuuza brand and am your tenant in the space.
What's so exciting about marketing? Why do you love this field?
I don't even think it's the market, it's the actual field. For me, it's not the field. For me, it is myself. It is a space where I'm able to creatively self-express. It's a space where I'm able to be myself without having to feel like I'm putting in a lot of work.
Okay.
So it doesn't make me feel like it's effortless.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's very result orientated. It's a very goal orientated space. So if you are going to transform something from beginning to the end, you are able to follow a process of transformation. Wow. And that is really epic for me. It's something that I put great value when I think about why I love to be in this space.
The phrase "on point, on trend," how did that come about? Because it's Ngwanuuza, on point, on trend. Tell me what you're communicating there.
Ngwanuuza on point and on trend, because Ngwanuuza is constantly respectfully speaking her mind. She's always on point. Ngwanuuza is unapologetically fashionable, so she's always on trend. So because we're moving into certain spaces and digital spaces, you should be able to come up with things that are catchy, that make you pop, right? And that make you easily recognizable. So it's part of the things that I put together when I was working on Ngwanuuza as my personal brand.
Yeah. And how have Botswana received Ngwanuuza? How has the public response been since you launched?
I think very well. You know, it was also a beautiful mistake.
In what way?
If you'd like to think. It was a beautiful mistake. As I said, 2019 was an affirmation for me. So Ngwanuuza was that affirmation. And I put across all these three phrases. And actually a good friend of mine said to me, "Oh, Kgomotso, why don't you print that on a t-shirt?" Naturally, you would think, okay, I'm going to go print it on a t-shirt. T-shirt is collateral. It's a touch point. I mean, for us marketeers.
Yes,
okay.
Touch point, yes.
So I went and I printed a t-shirt for myself, and I went and I took pictures. Like essentially one of the photographers here, I went on a photography spree, and then I posted it on Instagram. A beautiful mistake. So as I posted it on Instagram, I got a major response. Within that space, everybody was asking me, what is Ngwanuuza? Who is Ngwanuuza? And in that space, I printed 150 more t-shirts, and I sold them, all of them, within 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yes. A beautiful mistake.
And you haven't looked back since.
And I have not looked back since. And that is why, hence, at the beginning of this year, we evolved the brand to also have something like Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom. Ngwanuuza actually has its own podcast.
Wow.
Yes.
Excellent. We'll talk about it in a minute. But in Setswana, when you say "orata dilo," you like our things, it's an insult. But here you are saying you're an unapologetic liker of things.
Yes.
Work with that. Tell me more about that.
So Setswana can be very victimizing sometimes, if you like to think. We have been socialized, especially re bana ba bomme le ba basetsana, gore re tshwantse gore re nne re ikgara re bele ko morago re ska ra shine thata. I get. Mme hela, at the end of the day, the girl child is an amazing species. Because over and above just being a girl child, we are taught to be highly dynamic, right? So, ga se go rata dilo ke go affirm as a person, as a position in your own space in life.
But you do like them. You do like those things. And what's wrong with liking them?
No, I like things.
Yeah, that's what I know. So, and you're unapologetic about it.
Unapologetic about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I think what you're saying is, let's come out of the cocoon and like those things openly.
And let's do it. I mean, what's the... It's kind of how I come to a bua. A bua ba kote o wa phapayo. Ha re itse gore go ngwa ha buela go godimo ka moso talent ya go etlebele a public speaker, for instance. You know, we should learn to see what a child is, or mosadi for what they are, and not say ka gore o dira selo in a certain way o tshwantse gore a nne humble. We must like things, because if we don't like things, then how are we going to be the people that we are?
Yeah, yeah.
Or that we would like to be.
You also secure the bag.
Oh,
what is to secure the bag?
Secure the bag. Essentially, securing the bag means being able to move around in spaces of as we shared, my previous experience as a marketing career person, I've gone and moved into a more entrepreneurial space.
The bag means the dough, the money.
The dough.
Okay.
The bag.
Because that bag is full of cash.
It must be full of cash.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So I want the thinking behind it and why you made it part of your marketing material,
or a part of a language that is, or part of the positioning.
Yes.
Or what Ngwanuuza is about. Securing the bag means that I should be able to walk into spaces and speak to Mr. Mogobe and say, Mr. Mogobe, I have a proposition for you. Are you able to speak to me and listen to me? And then I'm putting it forth to you. And at the end of that, I should have secured the bag. I should be so confident enough to know that I can flow into spaces where when I put off my ideas, I'm able to be heard and I'm able to ultimately monetize. Because essentially, at the end of the day, when we create products or when we drive products, we want to be able to monetize those products, especially brands. You know.
So it could be like sealing the deal or closing the deal in sales.
Closing the deal, absolutely. That is what it is. It is about closing the deal.
Not just playing in the space, getting things done, results.
Exactly.
Okay, all right.
It rolls down to that.
Another thing that you say is a force. A force could be negative, right? Could also be positive. Explain that one.
In this context, this force is not a negative force in any way. It is a force that is meant to create a domino effect of Ngwanuuza. People that essentially that want to secure the bag, people that want to apologetically speak their mind, and people that essentially just want to be seen to be doing great in certain spaces or careers that they choose.
Okay. Any challenges? For instance, are there naysayers out there or negative, people giving you the negative vibe, and how do you deal with them? Any challenges along those lines?
There will always be challenges, especially when you're trying to put out a brand. For instance, people will question your true credibility. So if Ngwanuuza is speaking about a certain topic, how well is she vested in that topic? Or it would be a question of, if Ngwanuuza wants to secure the bag or seal the deal or close, how well can she deliver? What in her delivery, how well can she bring on that pitch? Right? So it's always challenges that come like that. You just keep your positive mind, keep your head above water, and know exactly what your brand is about and what you'd like for it to do.
And sometimes, we talk about branding, sounds a bit repetitive, but can you just spend a moment and explain the importance of branding and brand positioning in your industry and in business in general? Generally,
okay. So when a brand is well positioned, it means that a brand sits in a certain space of a customer, consumer, of certain's mind. But that takes a process of brand building, right? Where you sit and where a group of people sit and they consciously decide a certain brand narrative. So by narrative means that how do we like a brand to speak, or how do we like a brand to behave, and who do we like would we like the brand to impact? So when we put together all of these things in a box, and this is very layman without being too technical.
Well, we're laymen, don't worry.
I love that.
I'm a layman.
So when you're a brand, essentially your number one priority is to do this. If nobody knows you, and I like to speak it from a relationship point of view, a brand is like dating the people that don't know you, right?
Yes.
Or it's like dating, essentially.
Yeah.
So how do you...
Maybe speed dating.
Speed dating, if you like. So how do you bring the people that don't know you to know about you? And it's by positioning, and it's by creating a narrative, and it's by creating a story, right, and maintaining that story. So essentially, in the most simplistic way, how do you bring the people that don't know about you to come and know about you, and how do you keep them in that space and let them stay attracted to you?
Okay. Do you see Kgomotso Garebakwena as being a different entity from Ngwanuuza? Or is Ngwanuuza the alter ego of Kgomotso Garebakwena? How do you see it? You know what I'm asking you.
I know exactly. I know exactly what you're asking me. Kgomotso Garebakwena is Kgomotso Garebakwena, and Kgomotso Garebakwena is Ngwanuuza. Okay? The only difference that comes with Kgomotso Garebakwena and Ngwanuuza is that Ngwanuuza has now become not so much an alter ego, but now has become a true affirmation of a way of life, a culture for Kgomotso Garebakwena. I get, because I've kind of set a way of life that I want to live, which by affirming who Ngwanuuza is, right? So essentially, this is one person. The only thing that's different, that differentiates them, is that Ngwanuuza is brand managed, and Kgomotso Garebakwena can wake up and want to post whatever she wants to post on social media, for instance.
But people will always link the two, right?
Because it's the same person.
But obviously the public persona of the two are different. The persona, the public persona.
Amazingly, no. Especially in my position. Because I am not one without the other. I need to be, there has to be a certain oneness in it, right? So the persona cannot be divided.
Okay.
The persona is usually the same. The same energy that I bring in walking into my corporate space as Kgomotso Garebakwena, I will bring in as I walk into my enterprising space as Ngwanuuza.
And that speaks to the importance of consistency.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And what do you say to those entrepreneurs who make the mistake of trying to set them apart from their businesses? Perhaps a guy goes over the weekend and drinks beyond measure, and then all of a sudden on Monday he's a
different person.
Yeah.
I mean, in the instance where I have created my brand as one person, we should also, as business people or young entrepreneurs, be able to learn to separate our personal brands from our businesses. Because I am one person because of my personal brand. It is my personal brand. But in a business entity, for instance, like Mogobe Nuggets would be an entity, and Mr. Mogobe is his own personal person in his own space. You should be able to behave in a way that guards your business, because entrepreneurs must also understand that loyalty should lie with that business. Because essentially, as an entrepreneur, you're a risk taker, and essentially as an entrepreneur, you're unemployed or self-employed. Yes.
Actually, you're unemployed.
You're unemployed. You're unemployed.
Because you're an employer.
You're an employer. Hey. So it shifts. If you're going to drink on the weekend in certain spaces, and then so that it doesn't change the perception of you in the boardroom when you try to shift certain mindsets in the boardroom with certain people.
Let's talk about the social entrepreneurship element. It's part of your brand overview.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about that. What actually are you doing there?
So as part of my social entrepreneur, so Ngwanuuza essentially is an empowerment movement for young women. Just recently, in March, I had the opportunity to host the Women's Awards Botswana, the first ever Women's Awards, and look out for it. Next year we'll have another edition of the Women's Awards. And
it doesn't mean men are excluded, right?
No, absolutely. Actually, we have, as part of the categories, we have a category where we award the male that supports most females. It could be you.
It could be.
It could be you.
Yeah.
So in my social entrepreneurship, I try to bring in or try to walk within spaces where I'm able to engage people for empowerment, right, for growth, you know. And if there's something that I've noticed, especially from the young women that I've touched or the lives that I've touched, they consistently excel or transform or become better. So it's something that I look at as...
So this was an inaugural one, the first one?
That was the Women's Awards Botswana was the first one.
Okay.
Yes.
What does it entail? What does one have to do to win it?
You just have to do your best in the space of work or in your career or in your entrepreneurial journey, that you just have to shine. Is it a
competition? Do you have to submit your name?
Essentially, submissions are going to start around August or September. Actually, September is... so we will put out a list of categories, and then we essentially do a call to action for the public to nominate women that are doing great in those spaces. Essentially, when we launched pre-COVID, because we only just had the event now after the 2-year hiatus of COVID, you know, the idea is to allow the women that are doing great in that space of work to shine. And the Woman of the Year that won was the Bukhor Leboots.
Oh, okay.
And she won Woman of the Year.
And what did she do?
She's amazing, isn't she?
I think she's all over, but what exactly does she do?
No, she's an empowerment woman. Socially, she's very enlightening. And from a sports point of view, we've seen her sitting on boards. And from a career point of view, I think it's very aspirational for young women in Botswana.
We forgot Sebero part. So I didn't know who you're talking about at first. Okay, all right. No, that one, there's no question.
No doubt, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So somebody watching this is asking themselves, yes, I'm talking to Ngwanuuza, what can they do for me? So the average entrepreneur there, what can you do precisely for them?
So essentially, as my entrepreneurship journey has pulled me to spaces where I do personal branding for certain personal brands. So I'm able to transform certain brands and make them shine in a certain way or communicate in a certain way. So that gives me the role of a publicist for Mogobe, for instance. Secondly, I've been able to create...
You're turning frogs into princes.
Yes, absolutely. If you would like...
Yeah, just popped into my head. Just carry on, yes.
I love the pun.
Yeah.
So essentially, that is what I'm able to do because I've seen the transformation that I could do with my own personal brand and other brands. There is brands that I currently work on, but I mean, we can't kind of mention right now for disclaimer issues.
Well, corporates.
Corporates, yes.
And government?
No, not.
Okay, not yet.
Not yet.
Or maybe by design, no.
Not by design, no. I would like to flow into that space because I feel there's a gap for a lot of stature building.
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's a proverbial frog. You come in. What do you do to that frog to get it to be a prince?
I ask the frog. We change how the frog speaks. We fix how the frog shows up. We put the frog through etiquette training, and then we create. If it's a social media plan, we can create social media plans. If it's a PR plan, we put together PR plans and events for the year and calendar of activities, and essentially we
even teach it how to speak.
We even teach it how to sit. And even project.
Okay.
Themselves.
Just reminded me to sit properly. Okay, all right.
Absolutely. So essentially, we teach this frog to be a prince, and because this is essentially a PR task, it's more PR than anything. Because when they show up tomorrow, they need to be able to command a certain level of respect from a recipient.
Without mentioning names, can you share some success stories? In other words, just talking generalities.
Of a personal brand that we work with?
No, I mean the ones that you've really had successes with, yes.
Ooh. There is a brand that we currently work on. And this brand essentially came off, he's much older, he's an older gentleman, much older than you, Mr. M. And, I might give it off, but last year, essentially, we saw him paint his nails pink for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And we were able, for each finger, we're able to raise 10,000, how much was that, Zandile? 10,000, we were able to raise 50,000.
Yes.
50,000 pula for just the duration of the campaign.
Wow.
And it was mostly because he believed in the movement. He believed in changing people, and he believed in contributing and giving back. So he gave himself. And breast cancer awareness.
Wow.
And it came off as one of my most success stories because generally it required a lot of behavior change. It required a lot of wanting to show up in a certain way. So it was quite amazing for us to see that transformation come to life.
Yeah.
Because
just for that day?
No, for a month.
For a month. For a big cost like that?
Yes.
It's worth it because everybody's going to ask me and I'll tell them about it.
And you have to wear it to all the meetings that you go to.
Yeah. That's the first thing I show. Yeah, because it's such an important course. I'll do it readily, but you made me say this on social media, so I'm stuck with this.
No, well, it's a commitment. October was seeing you paint your nails pink.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, my mother died of cancer, so I'll gladly do it.
This is then a cause close to your heart.
Yeah. So I'll gladly do it.
Absolutely.
Now, let's talk about your online TV station.
My online radio station.
Oh, it's not going to become TV eventually?
Yes, in the pipeline.
So I'm speaking to the future.
You're speaking to Bopra, what they like to commonly call me in the office, the Oprah of Botswana, creating spaces and platforms.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, wow.
So
that's why I think that radio might be too limiting for you.
Radio might...
Unless it's online. Because I was under the impression that the intention was to go online with a TV station eventually, or at some point.
It would require quite a bit of infrastructure and capex, and I need to work a little bit more to secure more bags to get myself to that level, and I shall. It's just that...
No, it doesn't. It just needs a YouTube channel. That's how you start.
So, or you mean certain digital platforms?
Yeah.
Okay.
You start where everybody is. The infrastructure is there already.
It's just that how are we monetizing YouTube? Because unless your IP is registered, but like, can we keep this conversation?
Yeah.
Like, can we?
No, we can carry on later.
Yes.
But for now, what is the intent and what are you doing?
So I have an online station, radio station that is right here in this building at Mogobe Plaza on the 3rd floor. Right? It's an amazing space, and it's called B100. It's a space where I've brought in talent and different people to be able to speak their vibe.
Before we go
that
deeper,
tribe.
you have to define that, the B and the 100. What's the thinking behind that?
So the B100 was in two ways. So when we're sitting around the table at ideation with the team, when we're ideating this.
Brainstorming. Yes.
So we're sitting around the table and we were ideating this. We thought B could be a location point for Botswana, and 100, just B as like a
100
plate.
years?
No, as a plate number 100 as the first one.
Yeah.
But secondly, we also thought of it as B100, as in B100.
Percent.
Just
Be complete.
Just B100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which means show up completely. Don't hold back.
Don't hold back.
Yeah.
And that is why the catchphrase is B100, speak your vibe. Because it allows you to show up as yourself.
Okay. What does it take to be on it, and where does one check it out?
So B100 online radio station is available as a website. So it's www.b100.co.bw. You can find content that we air live in the studio on Facebook, B100BW, or on Instagram, B100. What does it take to be on the station? The station currently employs 6 presenters that are on air from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Sunday. Right?
Doing what?
Presenting. And being 100.
Interviewing people?
Interviewing people. So very soon...
Presenting...
You'll be there also.
Okay. Of course, I'll come.
Yes.
Gladly. Okay, and who's your audience? What's your target market?
So we actually got a very interesting question just recently, where somebody was asking us, because a radio station essentially must have a station ID, right? Where we are saying this is a youth station or this is a corporate station. So our space, because it's online, it's overarching. The presenters are able to reach certain spaces by the shows that they create. So, for instance, the tea with Tuto from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays is essentially a financial literacy space, because she's a finance graduate, right? So she's able to create content or curate,
big difference.
Yes, curate content where she speaks to financial analysts or financial, we're just here at FNB, finance people, and she's able to deliver herself in that space.
Would it be similar to FNB's First Issues?
No.
Oh.
The show is completely different from First Issues.
You say that so forcefully. You have to tell me what's the big difference.
The difference
apart from the visuals or lack thereof.
The difference is First Issues is curated for FNB completely. Our show is curated for somebody that's trying to enter into financial spaces or learn more or be able to, I don't know, communicate in a financial space that is layman and very entertaining.
So how do you monetize it? Is it subscription based?
So because it's a station, it's not at this point subscription based. It's free to air for everybody that's got data.
For now.
Right? How do we monetize it? It's a station. So, of course, we will get corporates advertising in the certain slots or corporates requesting for interviews and on the different slots. So, it comes at a price but it's because it's online and it's far much cheaper than terrestrial or traditional radio.
All right. And how does it relate to Ngwanuuza? Is it just that it's owned by the same person, or there's more of interaction or overlap between the two entities?
So Ngwanuuza might have inspired it. Ngwanuuza inspired the online station. So Ngwanuuza, how I mean that Ngwanuuza inspired the online station is that Ngwanuuza has a podcast, and every time after shooting the podcast, we would then extract the audio and load it on Apple Podcast or Google Cast or Anchor FM, and it would distribute the podcast. So I had to sit down and I thought to myself, if I'm able to do this on existing platforms, why can I not own my own platform in the country? And essentially, I wanted to just be able to find an app, load my own content, and then distribute it. But it then was able to engage with other people, and it gave me a bigger opportunity or bigger scope of mind to see that, oh my God, but you can actually do this. So how it's related to Ngwanuuza is that Ngwanuuza inspired it. It's owned by Kgomotso Garebakwena,
who co-owns Ngwanuuza, who happens to own Ngwanuuza.
Who is Ngwanuuza and now owns it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. All right. What on the regulatory side? Is BOCRA involved in any of this? Botswana, Communications Regulatory Authority?
Absolutely. So
how do they come in?
They come in, honestly, all you need to do, you need to give them notification that you're going to have. But there is so on the BOCRA website, there is a list of requirements that you need to fill out for you to be able to do this.
It's fairly straightforward, isn't it?
It's quite straightforward. So you just submit to them and they're able to put it for you. It's just the infrastructure that makes it different from traditional radio, terrestrial radio.
Okay, I want to talk about the demographics of your people in terms of categories, and I want you to explain each. Business people seeking investment advice. Speak to that and tell us the role they play there.
So we see, especially from the platform, the B100 platform, it's very reaching. It's very reaching in that we find, especially when we look at the stats and the numbers, most of the listenership is not local. So that in itself...
Meaning international or continental?
International and international.
Yeah, that covers everything.
It covers. So we find that it's very reaching. And if there's business people...
As far as which country?
As far as the United States.
How do you know?
As far as Russia.
How do you know?
Because it's on our website, so we get statistics and we're able to show this.
And you get feedback.
And we get feedback and algorithms. As far as London, we've gotten people saying we're tuned in London. Yes.
And they love the content.
And they love the content.
Wow.
And it's mostly curated. So I'm saying from a business person point of view, which is what you asked me, is if there's a business person sitting in London, in the US or wherever, and they want to find business in Botswana, they can easily find this through the online platform because the content in that space is businessy, especially if a certain show is businessy.
That's one category. The other category is future forwards, trailblazers.
Oh, trailblazers. Yeah. I love trailblazers.
That is the Ngwanuuzas of this world.
That is the Ngwanuuzas and the young and the energetic and the dynamic.
And the Mogobes of this world.
And the absolute Mogobes of this world.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you target them in the sense that they are invited as guests.
Yes.
And they also consume the content.
And
not only that, they also benefit from the Ngwanuuza side in terms of the advice they get. Youth, male. Why do you restrict it to 45? I don't like that because you say 18 to 45. I don't like your target market. Because I'm just out of it, so I'm not comfortable with it. Why are you excluding us?
I think
we call ourselves the senior youth.
The senior youth.
Yeah.
Because it's a new black. So the senior youth is the new black.
This is not good. Please, can you remove the restriction?
But let's visit that. Let's unpack that.
Okay.
Let's unpack that.
Because you say 18 to 45, so explain why those limitations.
We kept it at 18 to 45 because that is the youth bracket. But now you've gone and shared a concept that is not so new, but is very familiar. And we're saying the 45-year-old and above that are like Mr. Mogobe, that are the senior youth, are the new black. Because the senior youth of a certain generation.
Because for your information, life no longer starts at 40, it starts at 55 now.
Why?
It keeps going up because technology, modernization. You don't know that?
No. Life must happen now.
Yeah. So I mean, if somebody has the desire for your services or to interact with you, but they're just below 18, only just over 45, that's, to me, it's not good to limit yourself.
Okay. No, it will.
Are we having a disagreement or an agreement?
We're not disagreeing.
We're agreeing to disagree.
We're agreeing to disagree.
Okay. Yeah. Social entrepreneurs conscious of social issues. Why the social element is so important?
Because there's a lot of things from a social perspective, or a lot of topics that can be explored that can, essentially, when we speak from socially, we're thinking transformation and changing lives and touching lives with the things that we do. So that is, from the advent of Ngwanuuza, that is very important for me. It sits very much within my value structure. So I bring it out to light because it's easy to to create. Yes, and to bring to light.
Okay. Let's talk about the T-shirt as a brand asset. Explain the concept to some of us who are lay people, and then tell us how you are weaponizing it for your benefit.
So the T-shirt, a T-shirt is the most. The T-shirt is the most powerful, not even a T-shirt. So let's talk about merchandise generally. It's the most powerful brand asset, because when people see you in a certain thing, it means that they believe in the quality. And we've seen now in the market that we have a certain retail brand which is really amazing and doing well in that space. So if anybody is going to put you on that board, they should be able to they value you. They value you. They value the power. They value the messaging. You know, they value what it brings out to them. And essentially, it could be why big brands love merchandise. And Coca-Cola, for instance. Coca-Cola can play in a space where they can sell their merchandise. But at the same time, we all know that merchandise could be given away by Coca-Cola for free. But I will walk into a store and buy a Coca-Cola T-shirt because it's such a powerful brand. It resonates. It's, yeah. So
how does one have access to these T-shirts, or how are you marketing them?
So at current, we, because we're in the winter, we have not produced any T-shirts.
I'm sure you can wear it under the coat.
That's not the point.
Okay,
that's not the point.
All right.
The point is to see. The Ngwanuuza T-shirts, though, will come out in summer. From September, and as soon as we bring them out, they will come through on Facebook, and you'll be able to just purchase one at an easy 200 pula.
Coffee with Ngwanuuza just means just listening to the podcast, or is more to it than that?
Coffee with Ngwanuuza is the podcast.
It's the name of it.
It's the name of the podcast.
Explain the name, the choice of name.
Coffee. It's very easy to have conversations over coffee. Conversations over tea. And often we found 4 p.m. 4 p.m. tea. That's where conversation flows.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how are you, I don't know whether the word is curating, but using this for how you market positioning that in your packaging? Help me understand more.
So Coffee with Ngwanuuza, as its own podcast, is...
It's just talking to you?
It's talking to people from different walks of life that do things in a certain different way. I have had, similarly to... I've had panels of people where we're talking different topics. So essentially, for instance, the first topic that we had on Coffee with Ngwanuuza was about influencer marketing versus content marketing, right? So we dissected and we unpacked that as a theory. And I sat around the table with other marketing experts and other digital marketers for them to help me unpack that. And the idea was to empower the influencer out there or the content creator out there to show or to say how can they monetize their brands on a digital space, you know? So Coffee with Ngwanuuza is having essential conversations around the table with key people that can bring light to the topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
You talked about monetization, and you reminded me of a question that youngsters always want me to ask. Where's the Zaga? Where's the money?
Where's the Zaga?
Yeah, where's the Zaga in all of this? We want to see kaching. Want the Zaga? Where is it? Well, I want you to answer that one. Especially in your space, how do we monetize and where's the Zaga?
So I think for me with Ngwanuuza, it's been quite, it was easier because I was able to create the brand asset, the t-shirt. So for instance, the t-shirt already gives me 200 pula hore ke taboge ke reke metsi for the guests. It's a coffee with Ngwanuuza. So we shouldn't look at spaces and say, I'm just waiting for YouTube to give me 10,000 subscribers so that I can. We should be able to extend a brand so that it can do other things than bring in the zaga that they're looking to bring in.
For instance, sponsorships and so on.
Sponsorships, absolutely. Corporate partnerships. And it brings me back to when we said consistency is key in a brand. So when you're a brand and you show up, you must be consistent. You must show up in a certain light that makes you show up. So that when I put you on a list of other brands, I'm able to say, but this brand behaves a certain way, so I can trust them and that credibility. And they essentially monetize. Influencer on Instagram.
That's very interesting. So someone watching you who might be a bit conflicted, thinking, look, I have the skills, I like marketing, but I don't see anybody, I don't see Nyoko there. What would be your overall advice?
I think my overall advice, not just for marketing as a career path for anybody, but my overall advice for anybody that chooses to do something or chooses themselves is that don't do anything that you don't love to do. What's the point?
It's pointless.
Yeah, because essentially then it becomes like work, and nobody likes work.
Let your work becomes your play. Let your vacation be your vocation. I think that's your message.
Yes.
Which resonates very much with mine.
Absolutely.
You say you use Facebook engagements as benchmarks. How do you use it?
As benchmarks for
engagement and so on.
So I think it's a question of engagement scores on how certain people or certain brands behave in certain space, on certain platforms.
Is that when you are, diagnosing a client, for instance?
That's when I'm diagnosing a client.
Okay, this is not just necessarily you.
Yes.
Because you mentioned above 1% is good. How do you measure engagement above 1%? How do you work it out? From the algorithms? Or?
From algorithms, and there's also tools that we have in place, especially in my space of work and agency, that we use to measure your engagement rate. So engagement rate essentially means how many people respond to your content. How much and how do they respond to your content? Because sometimes you'll put up a post and you'll get 5 likes. But are you also are you also communicating to your community well enough for them to respond to you? And the moment you strike the balance of having the right conversation or content for your community, that is when you have a win as a brand. And then you'll see your engagement scores go up.
What is the trick? What is the trick to have that sort of click where you touch that sweet spot between yourself as a curator of content and the viewers or the subscribers or the followers?
Authenticity, because that's the first thing they're attracted to. Why do they want to be around you or listen to your content at any point in time? It's because, firstly, you've put in the right measures so that you are able to be authentic and they like a certain thing about you. But once you start veering away from being that thing, for instance, Madonna. Madonna is amazing, and she sings very well, and she has a community of people that follow her consistently. For instance, Bohemian Rhapsody. So I'm going to give you artists, right? Different artists. They behave consistently in a certain way, and they're always coming up with great artistic content. And then their followers are consistent. The moment you veer away from that, then you must know that you're not doing the things that your community wants to see.
You may veer away because you want to develop a totally new set of followers and you want to sort of upgrade yourself? Is that possible?
It is possible because there's different strategies to a brand. So once you've penetrated and you've gotten your existing users, now you've retained them. Now you want to do more. You want to attract new ones. So you're going to do.
So isn't that just collateral damage that others will fall off when you're working on the new ones?
They might fall off, but are you going to cancel everything that you've done before? You shouldn't. You shouldn't erase everything that you've done before.
So you give advice on this, you consult on this to your clients?
I consult on this with my clients.
And you can take a brand like Mogobe Nuggets, study it, and based on the algorithms, based on the engagements, come up with what?
A prince.
Oh, we're going back to that analogy. Yeah.
You gave me that analogy.
Yeah.
Essentially, that's it.
Yeah. But you're implying it's a frog?
No.
Oh, okay. All right. Maybe it's somewhere in between.
No.
Okay. All right. As we come towards the end of our conversation, I want you to take a crystal ball and look into the future. And when I say the future, I mean 10, 15, 20 years, and give us what you project, what you look for, what in terms of Ngwanuuza, and in terms of also the media side of things.
Who am I in 10 years? I will be Ngwanuuza. I will be securing bags or have secured bags. Yeah, no. I'll be very unapologetic in my liking of things. So what does that mean for me? It means that I hope in 10 years I would have transformed enough lives and grown enough young people to be able to be confident enough to establish themselves and be confident entrepreneurs or career men and women. For me, that is the ultimate satisfaction and goal. And of course, it does speak to the money side of things. Yes, of course, we want to secure the bags. But for me, my most important thing is to see transformation in people, especially the ones that I've surrounded myself with.
Okay. And in terms of physical assets in place, by what we see, what can you expect 10, 15 years?
You're going to see
more radio stations, more TV. What's the picture going to look like
in 10 years?
10, 15.
You're going to see another building, and it will have floors, and each floor will be a bespoke agency.
Wow, that sounds fascinating.
You said dream.
And
it's a very conscious dream.
Yeah, and with the advent of AFTA, the Africa Continental Trade Agreement, are you planning to expand beyond Botswana?
Absolutely, that is a true.
Tell us more about that.
Let's pack that for now.
Okay. Are you collaborating with people outside?
Yes,
you
I
mentioned
am.
that also
Yes.
already. Okay. Now, this is the time of the show when you get to ask me a question. But before you do, let me ask you one final set of questions. What are you doing in the space of interning and training and having attachments and things like that? And I'm saying this simply because I have my attachees here, so I just wonder whether you're doing something in that direction.
From a point of view of being social and being intentional about my work, I have experienced staff, but most of the staff that work for me or in my entity are mostly new graduates. So I do believe in unearthing from grassroots and allowing certain interns to shadow. Yes, I believe in shadowing completely, because then how do 10
job
years
shadowing.
Job shadowing, 10 years experience. Me bana ba hetsa dikolo gompieno ba bone ka 10 years experience. So I open my door openly to students to come in and learn and shadow.
Okay.
Yes.
You can ask that question now.
That's now I'm in my Ngwanuuza mode.
Yeah.
Mr. Mogobe, I think it's very humbling, and thank you very much for allowing me to be on your show today. It was quite a take back because I'm the one usually delivering the questions. So it had to be a position of receiving the questions. But I need to know, I think maybe somebody has asked you this before, but this is for me. What inspired the nuggets?
Well, I had a burden within me to share what I'm learning. I got very much active in the personal development space, where at some point I was reading a book a week, and it got to a point where I felt like I needed to share this information. And as someone who's active and obsessed with real estate, I felt the need to share some of my experiences. And I saw people making what I would call rookie mistakes or rudimentary mistakes. And I needed a platform to share some of this. Some of the content we share is real estate related. I would say roughly 25%.
It is quite.
But entrepreneurship in general, because to be a successful real estate investor, you need to be a real estate entrepreneur. So there's a lot of overlaps. And of course, during COVID, I got into forming Angel Network Botswana, where we got together with a group of other entrepreneurs who had a little bit of liquidity which they wanted to invest. So this complements also that platform in terms of exposing Angel Network Botswana and angel investing. So and I like speaking to people. I'm very inquisitive. So this is an opportunity for me to extract information out of people and to share and to learn. So I hope that answers your question. But it's really both selfish reasons and altruistic reasons of, if you like, philanthropic reasons of wanting to share and benefit others.
So it gives you the creative self-expression.
Yeah. You're just taking the words out of my mouth. Creative self-expression. Absolutely. Same as you.
Yes, indeed.
You know, before this we had the radio show called Meet the Overcomers. Out on Duma FM. I had Mr. Majani run it for some time, but I'm the founder, and it was my show and my company running it. So it was just a progression from radio to YouTube. To me, YouTube is like TV. You know, I couldn't go exactly to BTV and demand airtime. So this was, as it were, the next best thing.
Absolutely.
I hope that answers your question.
I'm completely humbled. Thank you very much.
But as we conclude, your camera is that one.
That is my camera.
You have to look at it and talk to that person behind there. Leave them with something inspirational, motivational, and hopefully impactful. Right.
My closing is this. It is not easy to be the person that you would like to be, but it's also easy for you to move in spaces and be intentional about it. So do not limit your dreams, do not limit yourself, give yourself the time, and don't stop learning. And that is my closing remark.
Okay. As is customary, you now have to share all your contacts, even your postal address, everything.
So you can find me as Kgomotso Garebakwena on Instagram and Facebook. That's very easy because those are my personal profiles. But my professional profile, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Ngwanuuza. You can find Coffee with Ngwanuuza, which is the podcast on Anchor FM or Apple Podcast or Google Cast. It's really everywhere and it's very reaching. So go out there, find this content. Actually, after this, I'm going to ask Mr. Mogobe to let me also upload it on the podcast. But essentially, that's where you can find me.
Depends on the size of the check you're going to sign. Yeah, but we'll discuss.
Securing the bags and closing deals.
Absolutely.
Great.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching. And let me thank you so much for being a wonderful guest.
Thank you.
All right.
It was awesome. Cheers.